1783 by the Tsar Empire. And Moscow began its reign in the 18th century, establishing its Black Sea Fleet in 1783 on the southern tip of the peninsula in what is today the city of Sevastopol. So previously, उनका एक historical linkages भी रहा है इस region के साथ. And continued its rule into the Soviet era uninterrupted except for German occupation during World War II. So Germany एक बड़ा short sum का rule रहा. Towards the end of the war in May 1944, Soviet leader Stalin deported the entire Muslim Tatar population of Crimea, where they had lived for centuries, to Central Asia on charges of having collaborated with Nazis, with Germans. So nearly half died of disease on the journey. So this was also a historical background. So even today in modern times, the ethnic composition of Crimea is predominantly Russian you can say in majority. So there are about 58% Russians who are living in Crimea. Then you have got Ukrainians, the second largest ethnic group there. And then you got Tatar, or almost 12% in Crimea. They are the Muslim population. And predominantly Russian population gives Russia a rationale to annex this region. They believed, अभी इसी चीज को उन्होंने रीजन बना कर उन्होंने कहा कि because the Russian population, major chunk of Russian population, you can say, of Crimea is basically belong to Russia or Russian origin ethnically. So they want to be with Russia. इस बात को प्ली बना के उन्होंने इसके ऊपर समझने के हिसाब का कब्जा कर लिया. एक अपराइजिंग सी क्रिएट हुई इस रीजन के अंदर, द रशियन पॉपुलेशन, और उसको बैक्ड बाय द सोवियट्स, रशियंस, उन्होंने इस अपराइजिंग को सपोर्ट किया एंड दे कैरिड आउट अ रेफरेंडम इन दिस रीजन. अच्छा, उस रेफरेंडम के जरिए से हुआ ये कि most of the people, about 95% people, they voted in favor of joining Russia. So this was a referendum by a superpower, by a veto power, Russia, which is a political, economic, and strategic power in the world, and which is controlling the resources of this region. And this particular, you can say, referendum was in favor of Russia. So ultimately, what happened? Crimea announced its annexation with the Russians, and ultimately Russia, they annexed this particular area. So previously, this region was, as I told you before, it was leased by the Russians, and Russia had, deployed their strong military naval forces there in this region, Sevastopol. So now the question is why Ukrainians could do nothing about it. The reason is simple. That Russia is very dominant power in the region, in the world, I would say. They are challenging the US hegemony in the world. They are challenging the NATO hegemony in the world all along. So I think Ukraine is no match with the Russian prowess. So Russia is very powerful as compared to Ukraine. If you analyze the Ukrainian military, it is not more than 139,000. Whereas the Russians, they have got a huge military force of about, 800, almost 800,000. So it's a huge military force. Then if you compare the tanks of the Russians and the Ukrainians, obviously the Russians are, 2,800 plus, and the Ukrainians are less than 1,000. Then you got ships. Naval fleet of Ukraine is also very small, whereas if you analyze it with the Russian naval fleet, it is 219, and they are highly equipped. And the most important factor is the nuclear factor. The Russians, they are a nuclear weapon state with huge nuclear stockpile and nuclear weapons of more than, I think, 6,000. Whereas the Ukrainians, they don't have any nuclear weapons, and they are a non-nuclear weapon state. And if you look at their defense budget, it is not more than $1.6 billion, whereas the Russian defense budget is more than $78 billion. It is close to 70, 80 now. So this was the major problem, that there is no comparison between the Russians and the Ukrainians, and the Russians are dominant power in this region. So this was the simple reason that they could do nothing about it. Secondly, you might have a question in your mind that why the Europeans did nothing about it. So the simple. The Europeans, they buy 100 billion worth of gas from Russia. So their economies, their household, their lives, their daily lives, their industry is totally dependent on Russia. If Russia blocks this supply of gas to Europeans, automatically the Europeans are going to suffer economic meltdown. So the Europeans also could do nothing. They could not come up with any economic sanctions or any military action against Soviet Union, against Russia, because the Russians are, very powerful, dominant power in this region, because Russia is controlling all the pipelines of this region, whether it goes, it comes from the Kazakhstan region, Central Asian powers, Caspian Sea, Ukraine, or any other power. It has to go through, Russia. So Russia controls all these, pipelines, gas pipelines. So this was the major reason that European countries could do nothing about it. So today, Crimea is part of, Russia, and Russia is a dominant power in the world and challenging the US hegemony in the world. So this was a very short, you can say, lecture for you, just to analyze one topic about the Russian interest in this region and Russia-Ukraine crisis, which is also important topic. Just for reference, you need to understand these issues so you can have a backup knowledge to support your argument, to support your, international relations paper or any other question in during your interviews. So if you got any questions so far, you can ask. Let me stop.